All right, so in the meantime, I'm gonna briefly share my screen, but just a brief introduction. I am Cristal Rodriguez with the Office of Congressman Garcia. I'm gonna give like an overview of how the office can assist during detention and deportation. As Diana mentioned, we are seeing an uptick of ICE agents in the community, whether it's suburban or in the city. We want to make sure that the office is here to provide guidance and to inform you all of how we're able to support various organizations, our volunteers, our rapid response groups, and see how we can be together and during these times of great unjust cases that we have seen. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, but as Diana mentioned, please feel free to put your questions in the chat and we can go from there. There will be an opportunity to ask your questions at the end of the presentation. So if there's anything that you would like to get more information about or it's unclear, just feel free to put your question in the chat. So for today, I'll be going over a defense guide and timeline of how we are able to assist individuals that have been detained or taken by ICE. So we're going to be going over questions that the office asks, documentation needed, so resources that the office can offer or how we can partner up to receive resources. So if there's part of your organization that offers assistance for somebody that has been detained, we are welcome and appreciate any resources that an organization has for us to help guide an individual that has been taken. And then we'll go over some examples of emergency cases and then how the office coordinates with other state agencies as well as federal agencies when it comes to detention. So just an overview of how the district looks like. Again, I'm part of the Congressman Garcia's team here. The 4th Congressional District encompasses Chicago as well as suburban Cook County and a little bit of the DuPage area. Again, if you fall away from the 4th district, that doesn't mean we're unable to provide resources or offer assistance. However, when it comes to a constituent being part of the 4th and advocating on their behalf, we do need them to reside in the 4th Congressional District. But again, we can partner up with other congressional offices and offer support and be part of the advocacy for the individual or the loved one that has been taken in order for us to have more of a strong presence when it comes to DHS or ICE keeping the individual in detention. So just some points to consider. Cases that come into the office are time sensitive, so it's very important that all the information that the office receives is complete. I know at a time where you're not certain whether or not your loved one has been taken or where the whereabouts of someone, it's very important to have key and sensitive information available so that a family member can reach out to the office and advocate on the person's behalf. As being known, Illinois does not have any adult detention centers. So a lot of people who have been taken by ICE or any bounty hunters, they are taken to the Broadview Center to be processed. And with that, they are taken to other facilities outside of Illinois. There's some cases where they don't even reach the Broadview Center and just directly take them to other detention centers outside. So again, that being said, it is time sensitive and a loved one can be taken across state lines when it comes to an individual being taken by ICE. So it's important that all of the documentation from your loved one is accurate and complete. Having the person's employment authorization card, if they have one, having their A number, if they do have one, their documents, copies, such as their birth certificate, their state ID, if they have any city key or any identifying document that can be able to track them when it comes to working with a federal agency. We're going to make sure that the name is complete, that they have their country of origin, and then their date of birth. It's very important for us when we are reaching out to the federal agency that we have that information in order for us to track and be able to identify where your loved one has been taken. Other than that, if we don't have that information, ICE does give us the runaround and doesn't allow us to advocate or essentially reach out to get information of the person that has been taken. Another point is communication is very important and very clear. For instance, we want to make sure that we're communicating with a direct family member. There is very important that, advocacy is going throughout a family, through an organization, but it's very important for us to get permission from the family member that is directly related with the person that has been taken. It's important because we do need privacy release forms, and I'll get into that more later on in the presentation. But we do need information and consent in order for us to open up and directly assist in this matter. So if a cousin reaches out or an aunt or a friend, we don't necessarily, aren't able to directly assist unless we get a direct individual that has been communicated. Our office maintains a confidential policy. We do not share any sensitive information of anybody that reaches out to the office. Again, we don't want to put anybody else at risk. We want to make sure that whoever is the person that reaches out for any reason is a U.S. citizen or a legal permanent resident, because we don't want to put anybody else at risk when we reach out to federal agencies. Again, we are a federal office. We work with federal agencies. So if we share any information with a federal agency, we want to make sure that we're not sharing anything where another individual may be taken from that case. So again, communication is key when it comes to completing everything, but we would want to communicate with a direct family member if possible. But if that's not something that is doable, given that if a wife or a brother is also undocumented, then we can make special occasions where a friend who is a U.S. citizen or a nephew or a niece that is a U.S. citizen to be that point of contact. Again, when we are advising individuals to fill out the privacy release form, we let them know that for just safety purposes, that it's a U.S. citizen that's completing any of the privacy release forms that we sent out to UICIS or any DHS, ICE. Just again, we want to make sure everybody's safe. We still have to work with these agencies and maintain that privacy release form for individuals. But again, within our office, we do not share any information when it comes to their status. Again, we maintain everything confidential. If a point of contact is undocumented, we don't share that with UICIS. We just want to make sure that we're keeping contact with a person that is connected with the individual that has been detained. And again, we are in strict compliance with House ethics. So we always have to comply with our ethics manual when it comes to casework. So that being said, we cannot necessarily reach out to a judge because that's outside of our jurisdiction. We can influence a judge if the case of an individual is being seen through a judge. We can necessarily reach out to the judge itself only through the agencies, because that's where we are able to advocate on behalf of someone. Once someone is being seen by a judge, that kind of goes over our ethics and we're unable to reach out, but we can provide other type of resources. And again, I'll go into more detail with that area, in that area. All right, so some of the questions that we need to ask in order for us to best help somebody that has been detained by ICE. We want to make sure that the constituent lives in the district. That, as I mentioned, if somebody does not live in the district, we would have to give courtesy to the congressional member that they reside in. If it's another Illinois delegation member, we reach out to them. We let them know that their constituent has been detained. If there's any support that the office can offer, we're here and willing to help. But ultimately, when it comes to reaching out to the agency, the constituent needs to reach out to their Congress member where they reside. So once we figure out whether the constituent lives somewhere else or in the district, we need to make sure that the person reaching out to the office is somebody that is related to the constituent. Again, as I mentioned earlier, we would prefer to work with a direct family member, but if that's not allowed due to their status, we're able to make exceptions and work with other family members that might not have a direct relation with the constituent that has been detained. Another question that we ask is if there's a legal case. As we have seen in the news, we have seen throughout the country, individuals or people that are detained by ICE usually have a pending application with USCIS. They have TPS, asylum, they're being petitioned by a family relative. And that is very essential for us to know because we can make a case on their end that they should be given due process of remaining in the country. They should be, they're able to be allowed while continuing their application process as stated through policies and USCIS and DHS. So again, we need to know if there's a legal case. If there isn't a legal case, that doesn't give them doesn't necessarily not do anything, but it's helpful to know whether or not they're in the process of an application. We also want to know if they're working with a lawyer, a nonprofit, or any other individual that is giving them assessment of their case. So full disclosure, here in the office, we're not lawyers. We cannot offer legal advice. We cannot let them we cannot give advice to a constituent and let them know that we're able to fill out applications on their behalf or give them legal advice or assessment regarding their specific case. So it's important to know whether or not they're working with a lawyer. We are lucky enough that we are working with nonprofit organizations that do have that capacity with that have lawyers on deck that can provide guidance. And again, a huge thank you to all the organizations present here that are doing the groundwork and helping us, advocate for people that have been taken and detained in detention and again, supporting their efforts through their legal actions. So again, here in the office, unfortunately, we cannot do legal actions on our end, but we're here to support and advocate on behalf of them, of the lawyer and the individual that has been detained. Again, we want to make sure the other question is have they contacted any offices? Congressman Garcia is a representative, but we want to know if perhaps the constituent has reached out to us, the senator's office, whether it's Durbin or Duckworth. We also team up with the senator's office to know whether we can sign on a letter instead of writing individual letters, whether they reach out to consulates, nonprofits, or any media. It is very sensitive when people reach out to certain areas because sometimes when there's an individual that has been taken and they have a high profile in media, sometimes it is favored, sometimes it isn't. So just depending, we want to make sure that we know whether or not what are the other contacts that have been provided or have been reached out through the family. And again, we want to know what actions or legal actions lawyers have taken, organizations, family members, just so we know what's the overall consensus with the person that has been detained. Again, a little bit more about the background. We want to know about the incident. We have certain, calls when we receive from concerned constituents in the area where they say somebody has been taken. They have a recording, but they don't know who the person is. I think that's very helpful for the office to receive those calls just so that we are aware of where ICE or DHS has been currently located or currently making the route. But ultimately, it's not necessarily fruitful when it comes to knowing who is the person that has been detained, just because we need to know who is the direct person or the family member that has been taken. So we want to know where and when they were detained, if they had a deportation notice, or if they're in court proceedings. So it's a little bit of the incident just because there are current court orders about people that have been detained without a warrant being able to be released immediately. So again, time is of the essence, and it's very important that we're able to know how ICE interacted with the person that they were taken, because then we can let them know how if there is any violations of somebody or if there was excessive force or anything of that sort that we can frame when we reach out to DHS and ICE. If somebody has been taken and the family member were able to call somebody from their family, knowing which detention center they are located. Again, this is a question that we ask because if you know where your loved one has been taken, we won't necessarily utilize the time to locate the person because you already know where they are at. So that kind of saves time for us to continue advocating with the detention center directly and letting them know that you have a constituent here without any warrant or any arrest and advocate for their release. So it's very important to know if they communicate with you, which detention they're at. And if that is unknown or unclear, then the office is able to assist in locating a loved one, whichever detention center they are. Again, the essential information that we need is their full name, their country of origin, their date of birth, and if available, their A number, which is it's also known as their alien registration number, which can be found in their application if they're applying for any legal proceedings or if they have an employment authorization card. Again, and another question that we ask is what's the last communication you have received from the person that has been detained? That that is something that we want to know because whether it's in the morning or it's after they were able to get situated or get their fingerprints taken, we want to know where exactly was the last line of communication. And again, if they were detained by with others, it's important to know that as well because then it's not we're waiting for other people to reach out to the office. We're also trying to see if there's a group advocacy that we can do, not necessarily just one person specifically. So if there was somebody else that was detained with your loved one, then we are able to advocate for both individuals since it was in the same incident. Some more questions regarding legal. Again, we want to know what the legal background or if there's any active petitions or immigration applications that have been ongoing. We want to make sure that we have a clear understanding of how the person entered the country, how long they've lived in the country, if it was uninterrupted or there's several visits in and out from the country. Just because we have seen in the past that people that have been long here in the United States from 20 to 35 years have an extensive history and it's shown that they have their livelihood here. So we're able to build a case. So all these questions that we ask is in order for us to get a full understanding of someone's story and someone's ability to be being released because of how they're well connected with in a sense with the United States. So we want to make sure that if there's any legal altercations with law enforcement, whether they're just basic traffic lights, any tickets, DUIs, or a criminal record, that we are aware of that as well, because sometimes they use and try to utilize someone's criminal record to paint them in a different light. And sometimes that is not necessarily the case where that's something that happened when they first entered in the 90s or in the 80s, and now they have lived a long, extensive, clear record. So again, sometimes people or sometimes the agency tried to criminalize a lot of people, and that's not necessarily something that we considered a reason for detainment or detention, and no person should be taken in a way that is not warranted or signed by an immigration judge. Like that's not something that we agree with. And again, we want to make sure that we know the legal background in order for us to be informed and advocate on their behalf. And we don't share this record with anybody else. We just keep it for our own information. Lastly, when it comes to personal, we want to make sure that we know how and where the person lived, if they have a partner, what's the status of their partner, if they have any children that live in the United States, whether they're US citizens, or if they have a status in the United States, if they have parents, if they have any other information available when it comes to their their loved ones here in the United States. So there's like an immediate connection. If they have any health conditions, there's a lot of individuals that have been taken that have either diabetes, they need to take their insulin, they have asthma, they need to get their medication updated. That's something that we can advocate and make sure that they're receiving proper health, their proper health conditions in there. And if they don't, we're able to reach out and let them know that they have been denying somebody health services. Again, we want to make sure whether or not the individual is the main provider or the contributor to the household. There's certain criteria that in the past DHS or ICE has been able to abide with and let an individual release, whether it's a health condition, whether it's financial or a humanitarian reason. They are able to release someone, but sometimes it's a case-by-case basis where if an officer from from DHS doesn't want to release somebody because they don't want to, then that's something that unfortunately does happen when it comes to these agencies because they've been emboldened by this administration and they have been given guidance not to allow and certain individuals that have a background when it comes to letting them be released out of bond, regardless of if they have no record at whatsoever. And again, we want to know if they have any involvement with community, with an organization, whether it's a church or any other volunteering opportunities. It's not necessary, but it's something that we can see if there's a community member that can advocate on their behalf as well. So once we get a better understanding of these type of questions, I know it's a lot and it's very overwhelming when you have somebody that has been taken and you don't want to get bombarded by all these questions, but it's important to keep them in mind because as an office, it's very helpful for us to determine the type of assistance that we can provide once we have all the information. And that's also very important that we respect the constituents' wishes. And if it feels like it's too much sensitive information that you're sharing with our office, then we respect that and, also give you the free to just like end at any point with the office. We have had some cases where people don't feel comfortable sharing all this information and want to share a few items or here and there, and which is fine. But again, in order for us to help with as much as we can, we do ask these questions from people. So as you are helping individuals that come to your organization, come to your office with stating that somebody has been taken or somebody has been missing, keep those questions in mind. So we want to make sure that they're not asked continuously these questions. So it's very helpful if you are from an organization or you're from an office that these questions are asked essentially, and then these can get and this information can get referred to our office. And if there's anything missing, then we can follow up with the missing details. But we want to avoid, bombarding the constituent and their loved ones with multiple questions by various groups, because then, again, sometimes constituents distrust federal government, given so. So if they feel more comfortable sharing this information with your organization, with your office, you already have that connection with the individual, and you can just let them know that you need to ask these questions in order for you to give that referral to the office. That's something that can be done as well, and it's greatly appreciated because that moves our timeline faster, and we'll be able to act faster when it comes to helping somebody that needs assistance. Again, depending on the determination of what somebody is an illegal permanent resident that has been taken because they were racially profiled, or somebody that has a specific application and just waiting to receive a response from USCIS, or somebody who's like undocumented, that determines how we are able to assist the constituent in making sure that we're able to move in a fast pace. So everybody in the office is able to help somebody that has been detained and ask these questions. So again, some of the emergency cases we have seen in the past are not the same as we have seen in the past 2 years with this administration. As before, Sometimes we would see emergency cases coming from the airport where somebody has been detained because their employment authorization card is not vigilant, or they have something in their case, or they're mistaken in their identity, etc. But now it's different, where some of these emergency cases are coming of somebody just getting picked up from the street just because they look a certain way, or having somebody being taken from their car, their vehicle, which is again they're making by traffic stops that they shouldn't be doing. So now some emergency cases look way different from when we were in other administrations to what it looks now. So again, we're treating every case as an emergency when it comes to detainment and detention. So we really make sure that if there's somebody that's being detained, we reach out to the DHS and the detention center to let them know how somebody has been taken. So information and documents needed from the office. We definitely need information of the loved one that has been detained. We need the information of the constituent who's inquiring, and their connection to the person that has been taken, and then documentation that proves either evidence that they were a legal permanent resident and they have this type of documentation laid out, the birth certificate, or essential documents that prove the identity of the person that has been taken, so we can have all the documents when, if there's a referral that needs to be done, we're able to send that over to any organizations that can provide legal advice. So at our office, once we receive all the information, we are able to reach out to a federal agency. We work well with other levels of government, whether it's state or local offices, providing support to connecting individuals with resources that are not necessarily available on the federal level. We're able to make sure that the constituent doesn't feel alone during this process. I know, especially if somebody was the main breadwinner of their family, and now they need to find food pantries, need to find financial housing assistance. So making sure that we're connected with other state or local offices, because unfortunately in the federal level there has been a lot of dismantling in different agencies. So there's very limited resources that on our federal side that we're able to provide for constituents. But luckily, we live in a state like Illinois that is a welcoming state, a welcoming city in Chicago, and there's various municipalities that are also welcoming areas for undocumented and immigrant families. So it's very important that if your office or your organization offers assistance for individuals that are currently passing through hard times, we're able to have a record of all the resources available. So if there's an individual that needs assistance in any area, we're able to connect them accordingly. And then just lastly, once again, like, our office cannot provide legal advice. We're not lawyers. We cannot assist with filling out legal documents, especially if they're going through federal agencies. We cannot necessarily interpret any legal documents, as well as guarantee whether or not somebody can be released. At the end, it does fall under the jurisdiction of the agency, and we can provide advocacy and support the federal action, the legal actions of their lawyers, and making sure that if there's anything that is being done incorrectly, then we're able to provide context and guidance of, like, that they're being not reviewed accordingly. And we have had cases where somebody's name was wrong when they were detained, and has been ongoing through their legal proceedings. And therefore, they're not the same person. So we, in the court of law, so we have to make sure that that correction is made, since if their lawyer is always putting those notices and they're not being reviewed accordingly, then that's something that the agency is failing to do. So we want to make sure that we're able to provide that guidance and that communication with the agencies. All right. So again, for any other offices that are here, we want to make sure that we're helping each other, whether it's a state or local office that the constituent trusts, or if it's a organization that you can obtain all the information. You don't need to obtain any specific documents from the person that has been detained, but making sure that the information is being gathered, so then our office can just reach out to the necessary agency and detention center. So once we identify the person and it's located, we directly connect with the the detention center and let them know what is the status of the person, why is the reason that they're being detained, if they can provide documentation of their detainment record, and if that is not something that they're able to provide, we continue advocating for the person with a letter of support. We call ICE at certain levels. We have the congressman be involved and call the regional ICE director or the supervisor of the detention facility, advocating for a lot of people to be released. And then again, we continue assisting family members throughout the process and keeping them updated. So going over some of the privacy release forms that we share with the constituent, the first one is from our office. Every Illinois delegation may have a different process when it comes to privacy release form. This is our process. So if you don't reside in the 4th Congressional District, I would say get connected with your congressional member and see how they can help people from your area and help people that have been detained or have a plan of how to contact their office. This is essentially the plan that we have for our internal purposes, and we're letting you all know as partners, as as members that are interested in helping constituents get connected with this process. So that's why we have these privacy release form, because we need special consent in order for us to contact family members. So our first one is internally. We keep this for our own records. We do not share with any federal agency. We just want to know who's a person that we can contact, who is somebody that we can reach out to specifically when it comes to obtaining their information. The second form that you see here is the UICIS privacy release form. This form does go to the agency. It goes if somebody has a pending application, whether it is a family petition, asylum, TPS, U visa, T visa. We need this form to be filled out so that we can send it directly to UICIS and for us to get a status update on their application. As I mentioned previously, family members that have been taken and have a pending application, we work with both agencies to let them know he has a pending application. This is the current status of the application. And then we inform DHS and we inform ICE of letting them know, like, this individual is going through an immigration process. They're doing all the right things as this administration considers. So please, we're advocating for their release. So again, a lot of these agencies do not communicate with each other, which is very alarming, but it's very given that they work in silos. So if they do have a pending application, the Department of Homeland Security is not necessarily going to care whether or not they do. They just want to take somebody away and unstable a lot of family homes. So it's very important for us to get information from that agency and letting the other agency know regarding this the person's background and information. Then for the DHS form, this is a form that can only be signed by 2 people. This form can only be signed by the individual that has been taken or by their lawyer, and they need to provide proof that they're representing the person that has been detained. So just some background information on how to fill out that form. When it says your full name, a lot of people confuse it by the person that's asking for the individual getting information, but that's not the case. It's the person that has been detained. The current address is not the address of the detention center, is the address where they reside in. And then again, the A number is also listed there. Again, it's not necessarily something that all people have, but usually once they are being detained and if they have a record of them being or coming in and out of the border, then they probably do have an A number. And then for the recipient's name or mailing address or recipient's organization, that's our congressional office. So you can leave that blank and our office fills that out. As you can see, this waiver can only be applied through a few groups, so news media, congressional office, or a law firm. So if you leave that blank, any individual can help with the law, either if you're filling out with a law firm or reaching out to a congressional office, that can be signed. That information can be released for the specific entity. The second part that we have here is what information you're able to disclose. For me, I'm letting you all know that my recommendation is having all information or all records requested by the recipient, just because if there is some information that you do not disclose, DHS will just try to say the constituent did not want you to receive this information, or the reason why the person is detained is not disclosed because they did not share with the third party. So it's very important for us to say all information or all records displayed. Again, once we do receive that from DHS, we keep it internally. We don't share with anybody else. So it's very important for us to know all their information in order for us to keep advocating on their behalf, because there has been some instances where let's say that they don't have the criminal history checked or they don't have the medical information checked. So if we are letting them know, hey, like this person needs special assistance, the family member has been telling us that they haven't gotten their insulin in the timely manner, and we want to and we want to know when are they getting their medication. And if this is something that they didn't check, they're not going to release that information. They're just going to say the individual is like we cannot share information from somebody that does not want to share. So for us, we can't necessarily advocate if there is missing medication or medication that's not given in a timely manner, or if there's a visit and we want to know if the family member wants to know how the visit went, we aren't able to get that information for them. And then lastly, this is where I mentioned it can only be signed by two people. It has to be signed by the person that has been detained. They're not letting a family member sign on their behalf. They're not letting anybody else sign on their behalf besides their lawyer. So the signature has to be from the lawyer, and then the witness has to be somebody outside that witnessed the signature, as well as not related to the recipient. So somebody from the office cannot be the witness signature here, just because there are the one receiving the information. So there's a conflict of interest. So we always say bring somebody else that can sign that form, or within that lawyer, somebody from their office signing, or if the nonprofit organization advocating on behalf of the family being themselves signed. As you can see, there's a date here. Lastly, some of the information that we do provide is like legal aid, advocacy organizations. Again, we're very fortunate that Illinois has a lot of immigration organizations that help throughout the state of Illinois. Chicago is one of them as well. So we're thankful that organizations that are here that have legal representation are taking or advocating on the legal front for a lot of the people that have been taken. Social service support, we also depend on state agencies and county agencies that help people that don't necessarily have a legal status in Illinois that can still benefit from state or county programs. And then we also connect them with their consulates. So whether they're from any country of origin, we reach out and let them know to connect where they're nationals from, just because it's very important that the consulate is one of the only entities that can enter a detention center and reach out and check on their nationals. So again, it's very important that families are connected to the consulates that they are from because they're able to provide identifying information, whether it's like a matricula or the birth certificate. The consulates are able to pull up those records from and someone that has been detained. That concludes the end of the presentation. I'll take questions here. I'll stop sharing my screen, but again,